Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Niall Fraser Show. It is Wednesday, the 10th of July. Welcome. We've got quite a show lined up today. We starting off with planes, trains, and golf buggies. So once again, guys, welcome to the Niall Fraser Show. If you haven't already, share the link. Get more people watching this. We've already got 90 people tuning in almost immediately. Incredible. So tonight, we'll comb through the election aftermath, all the infighting, all the bitterness. 39 gravy train tickets evaporated, expired before our very eyes, almost in perfect unison. Doesn't get much more better than that. Then it's off to our next segment of the show, planes, trains, and golf buggies. We discuss Scotrail issuing an emergency timetable, guys, right before the two biggest golf tournaments of the season for the Scottish calendar. And that's right off the back of two major victories for Scottish players. Robert McIntyre with his recent win in the Canadian Open over in Canada, obviously. And Ewan Ferguson's victory last week at the BMW International Open in Germany. So these next 2 weeks are really giant for the Scottish golf calendar, and they're giant for Scottish tourism in general. So another example of the Scottish government taking their eye off the ball, hurting Scotland and Scottish businesses, and in this case, slicing the ball right into the trees. And here we are with our intro. I know you already love it. Where is it? Where's my intro? There it is. What an incredible intro video that is. And thanks to Simon Templar for creating that video. You can find it, him on YouTube. And he's X on Brobill on Twitter. Right, so a quick scan over the papers. We've got a decent show for you lined up tonight. We've got a special golfing segment coming on at 11 with the great Davy Griffiths. He's got a political night off. We're talking about golf tonight, considering the fact that we've got 600 services. Scotrail's got 600 services on the eve of Scotland's biggest golfing weeks in the year. I mean, it's just simply incredible, guys. And we've got another question coming up that we'll be asking you, the viewer. And so please do get your comments in. Will the SNP keep or replace John Swinney? That's the sort of story we'll go to tonight. We'll go to the papers later on. We'll go to the intro piece. So 6 days ago, we had a historic night here in Scotland, which seemed the SNP reduced to ashes. Absolute dust. 48 MPs have become a mere 9. The chinks in the SNP armour have been well and truly exploited, ladies and gentlemen. And the SNP, they're walking on water during all these elections for the past nigh on decades here. That has all ceased to happen. And in some parts of Scotland, I mean, the SNP at one point, they could have put up one of Patrick Harvey's blow-up dolls with an SNP rosette and it would have won an election up here in Scotland. And that sort of... they could just field anyone they wanted. That has landed us with, subpar MPs and politicians like Mary Black. So what does this mean for the SNP next, ladies and gentlemen? Where do they go for here? Get your comments in. What will they do next? The clear sort of question we're asking tonight is, will they keep or will they replace John Swinney? That is the question of this evening. Are they going to frantically try to bail out the sinking ship, or will Swinney clutch onto his captain's hat and go down with the ship? And I know there's a joke in here somewhere. If you can imagine the SNP Titanic scenario, everyone in the SNP is going to be claiming to be women to get on the lifeboats first, and probably a few of them claiming to be children as well. So get your comments in, guys. We've got a huge amount of viewers in already, 250. Get that link shared, get more people in here, and we'll get your comments read out. So we're also going to look at a few memes. Memes coming out emanating after the election. It's just been so sublime. We've had a couple choice ones. We're going to show the Mercurius video later in the show. And we're also going to show Churchill Cigars, only 20-second video. So Ian Gibson straight in with the comments, Swinney's got to go. We think that, but do the SNP think that, Ian? That's the question. So let's go to the papers. So the Scotsman, most of them running with the story today, guys. Scotrail cut 600 services as driver pay dispute escalates. And you must be seeing a wee bit in the corner there. Sillars, Jim Sillars, ladies and gentlemen. He's branded Sturgeon Stalin's wee sister. Can you believe this? You took your time, Jim. You've waited until after the election to tell us all this. Nicola Sturgeon has been branded Stalin's wee sister by former MP and deputy leader of the party, Jim Sillars. The veteran accused the former leader of turning the SNP into a leadership cult, ladies and gentlemen, a cult. As tensions mount within the party. In an open letter to members, he said the election result was a referendum on the Scottish government. Quite good as our Jim, isn't he? That's the Scotsman. And the Scottish Daily Express leading with the same story, ladies and gentlemen. Scotrail pay route risks the summer of travel chaos. Amidst the biggest week, the biggest 2 weeks, in the Scottish golf calendar. We'll be talking much more on that when David Griffiths gets on in about 50 minutes' time. Again, the Scottish Daily Mail. SNP's Stalinist leadership must go, says the ex-deputy, Jim Sillars. What do you think, ladies and gentlemen? Swinney, is he going to go or is he not? So the last few days have been absolutely, the dust has started to settle here in Scotland after the aftermath of the general election. What's happened is people have still really been coming to terms with the fact that the SNP have been absolutely annihilated here in Scotland. But we've started to see them unravelling just a tad. An example of this was our good friend, Joanna Cherry. So Joanna Cherry instantly blaming Sturgeon. Let's get the video.
You're well aware that I've got the former First Minister sitting next to me here, and I don't want this to be awkward for any of us, but I guess I have to ask, who do you hold responsible for independence not being pursued in the way that you seem to be suggesting it should have been?
Well, it's always easy with the benefit of hindsight to see what has gone wrong, but there were of those of us in the party who argued for a different strategy at Westminster, for a different strategy during the Brexit years and for a different strategy towards independence. But let's just say our suggestions were not well received, and there was a lack of debate and a lack of discussion over policy and strategy in the party under both Nicola's leadership and under Ian Blackford's leadership at Westminster. And I think when the story of the Westminster group is written, it will be recognised and understood that that group was poorly led until Stephen Flynn came along, but Stephen didn't really have the time to turn things around, and that we missed some big opportunities when effectively we were pretty close to holding the balance of power during the Brexit years, during Theresa May's trials and tribulations. And we also failed to capitalise on the great victory that I won in the Supreme Court when Boris Johnson's prorogation of Parliament was ruled unlawful. So, as I say, it's always easy to criticise with the benefit of hindsight, but I think these policy failings and these strategic failings arose because of a style of leadership that didn't brook discussion, debate or argument. And I think that's been a big failing of the party. And what I think now the party has to do is the party has to honestly appraise what has gone wrong, because until we do that, until we address what's gone wrong and until we try to set it right, we're not going to reverse this setback for the SNP.
Well, we know what's gone wrong, Joanna. The SNP have went totally bonkers. We know what's gone wrong, Joanna. We know what's went wrong. I'm just reading Jim Siller's bit, his open letter to party members. Some of the extracts from his letter from the Scottish Daily Mail. The Sturgeon Swinney era has lost its common sense in government, promoted marginal issues as national priorities. You can say that again, Jim. The leadership is a busted flush. The people have no regard for him. He's absolutely correct again in his summation there. You, in brackets SNP members, acquiesced in changes which shifted all power to a leadership cult. The cult that we know was run by WhatsApp all the time. And we know their bedtime ritual was to delete messages, guys. These are the folk that we want in charge. No, I don't think so. The SNP members acquiesced in changes which shifted all power to a leadership cult with the party, then run by Stalin's wee sister, imposing a Politburo of 2. You've got so used to not thinking for yourself that you've allowed the party to be hollowed out intellectually. This guy is spot on, Jim Sellers, isn't he? The independence is split and splintered. Well, that maybe not so much, Jim. Maybe not so much. Scottish Government ministers have been on a carousel, getting off from one office only to get back on to another one, irrespective of how they performed in the first one. Again, music to my ears, Jim. And he's absolutely correct. The SNP must change leader. According to what I think, I'll quite happily go along with John Swinney at the helm, try to bail out the Titanic after it's hit the iceberg, the lunatic that he is. And over to the Scottish Daily Express. The main story tonight, ladies and gentlemen, most of the Scottish papers and news programmes are going with this. Scotrail pay row risks the summer of chaos. Absolute disgrace here in Scotland. And what we'll do is, the key to this strike, the key to this is the fact that there's not enough drivers here in Scotrail. Now let's just look at this picture. Thank you for the Telegraph. Right, so here's Nicola Sturgeon proudly opening Scotrail's. It's been brought into public ownership, Scotrail. So you know what that means, guys. It's going to improve drastically under the SNP government. No, of course it isn't. Of course it isn't. It's going to go downhill like the rest of the things we've brought into public ownership and nationalised. Everything goes downhill under the SNP. So, as you can note here on the plaque, Scotrail, Scotland's railway, to public ownership, or marking the transition of Scotrail to public ownership on the 1st of April 2022. And what a fantastic date it was. April Fools. Because there again, the Scottish public are being taken for fools with this. Immediately. So as you can note, right, 2022. We're now 2 years on from public ownership, from Scotrail passing from private to public ownership. And the key thing that all the news pundits are saying, we've not enough drivers, ladies and gentlemen. We've not enough drivers for Scotrail. So it's been in public ownership for 2 years. And all your news comments and all your news pundits are saying it takes a long time to train a train driver. Well, it takes on average a year, according to most of the pundits, right? So we've had 2 years. Now it's been public ownership. Surely they would have known they needed to train more drivers. Because the situation is they're making drivers work overtime. They're making drivers work overtime and then blaming the drivers for not working overtime because of the lack of services. I mean, can you believe this, guys? If you were a train driver, you would be hitting your head off a brick wall now, or against the steering wheel. Because really, they are entitled to a day off, ladies and gentlemen. If you are working 6 days a week and your employer says, oh, we need you to work the 7th day a week, you'd be furious. You need your time off, guys. You need your time off. And the fact, see if you had taken a question to all the guys in the audience. See if you'd taken Scotrail into public ownership. The first thing you would do would be to check, what's our capacity here? Can we increase services? How many drivers do we got? These are all simple questions that need answered. And if you were at the helm of Scotrail, this is what you should have on your desk. The first thing you come in every day, you'd be looking at how many drivers have got, how many services can we provide, and how can we make it cheaper for people, right? That's not the case at Scotrail now. It's been nationalised. What they've done, they've had 2 years to come up with more drivers. Surely they would have known that this point in time would have came where they didn't have enough drivers to sustain the schedule that we're running now. And instead, what they've been doing is relying on people doing overtime. I just think it's such a failing of just management in Scotrail that has led to this schedule change. So we're just sort of counting down the time until David Griffiths comes on in 40 minutes. But first, let's look back at some of the memes coming out of the Scottish election. The first being, we're going to get taken off YouTube. We'll probably get a copyright strike for this, but I don't really care. We don't really care much about YouTube. But check this one. This one was probably my favourite, from Churchill's Cigar. So short and sweet by Churchill Cigar, but I mean, this is the thing. It was so. I mean, that video must have been viewed over 100,000 times on Scottish political Twitter alone, and it's absolutely sensational. And this is just another example of the concept of using music to enhance your message and to enhance your video, and just to sort of. I think music is a great way to fight back. Against politically, it's a great tool in order to fight back. So let's let's now take a look at the Mercurius video. So Andrew Neil even shared this video, and it had over 500,000 views, ladies and gentlemen. So let's just enjoy this. And I've got permission. Mercurius was very happy for me to use this video, as was Churchill Cigar. So we'll play the Mercurius video now for everyone's enjoyment.
Got it. The exit poll is here. The SNP expected to secure 10. There's so much drama to lie ahead of us. Peter Smith is in Edinburgh.
The architect of putting independence front and centre of this general election campaign is in our studio tonight. She was the one who said that this would be a de facto referendum on independence. The people of Scotland have had their say.
Slaughter of the innocents, isn't it? I mean, it's a devastating reversal for the SNP.
What's happening in Scotland is the end of a decade of SNP dominance.
You're well aware that I've got the former First Minister sitting next to me here. Who do you hold responsible?
There was a lack of discussion over policy and strategy in the party under both Nicola's leadership and under Ian Blackford's leadership.
I was dismayed to hear the former leader of the party, Nicola Sturgeon, on the television this evening talking about the party in the third person as though she has nothing to do with it.
A simply astonishing result.
Nicola Sturgeon was at the forefront of Scottish, indeed British politics.
And I think history will show that major opportunities were squandered by Nicola Sturgeon and Ian Blackford.
And no one's going to give you a referendum, and there's nothing you can do about it. That's all we have time for.
Another fantastic video by Mercurius. It's very rarely off the mark as Mercurius. Watch another one. And again, at the end, it caps it off so beautifully. Let's rid Holyrood of the SNP. That's the next mission on everyone's agenda. So I'm just going to read some of the bit of the paper about the summer rail of chaos ahead as Payrow hits 590 trains, almost 600 services axed, ladies and gentlemen, by Douglas Dickey of the Scottish Daily Express. Train passengers face a summer of chaos after Scotrail confirmed it was slashing nearly 600 services. Scottish Government-owned operator confirmed yesterday it was introducing a temporary timetable to potential strike action. It means just 1,660 services will run daily from Monday to Saturday, down the usual level of about 2,250, 26% lower, ladies and gentlemen. They're cutting a quarter of their services, just slightly more than a quarter. It means just 1,600 services will run. Travel to big events could be hit, and this is what we'll be getting onto with David Griffiths later on the show. The Scottish Open and the Open Championship at Royal Troon this week. And of course, Transmit Music Festival this weekend. So Calvin Harris is playing. It'll be a massive event. And what happens? The trains are doing. The trains have been axed. What is going on? They're doing Scottish businesses a disservice here, and they're doing all the tourists a disservice in coming here. And when we look at the numbers of attendees when it comes to the Scottish Open, we're looking at 72,500 record attendance last year at Scottish Open. And the British Open was record attendance 2 years ago in St Andrews, which is 290,000 record attendees. And this is a giant. See if you live in an area where the Scottish Open is held on the Scottish East Coast, somewhere like North Berwick, Gillane, East Linton. All these areas would hugely benefit from all these attendees. The pubs, the B&Bs, the hotels, every shop is going to have a sort of golf boon. And the Scottish Government are hindering that they are harming Scottish businesses in reducing the number of services. So let's continue with the article. Transmit's been hit this weekend. The Open Championship's been hit this weekend. So Scotrail has been in pay talks with rail unions ASLEF, RMT, TSSA and Unite for a number of weeks. But again, this has got nothing to do with strike action as of yet. This is purely to do with overtime and forcing train drivers to work extra days. It's their days off. And then going ahead and blaming train drivers. I feel really, really sorry for train drivers at the moment. Formal offer was made last Friday, but was rejected by all 4 unions. ASLEF has already recommended a battle on industrial action. The SNP government, which took Scotrail into Scottish public ownership over 2 years ago, is now under pressure to step in. The Scottish Conservatives said it was imperative immediate action was taken last night. The party's transport spokesman, Douglas Lumsden, described the news as a blow. Of course it is, Douglas, to rail passengers across Scotland. They have already suffered endless cancellations and disruptions. And I can say this firsthand when I was in Edinburgh just a few days ago, and I'm looking up at the carousel in Waverley Station, and I'm looking at trains that I used to get 10 years ago, the ones into Fife, cancelled. It must be horrific if you are a regular train passenger here in Scotland. If you are, let us know in the comments just how bad it is. They've already suffered endless cancellations and disruptions to services since the SNP took control of Scotland's railways 2 years ago. And again, this crucial 2-year gap, if they took ownership of Scotrail 2 years ago, they would have had the time to train up new drivers and avoid this very situation, ladies and gentlemen. That's the story of the night, that they could have averted this action if they had took immediate action to address the fact that they didn't have enough drivers when they took public ownership of it. You know, this is, the segment's almost like it's planes, trains and automobiles. But it could be planes that didn't work, trains that didn't work, and the war or automobiles with the SNP. Because this is what it is. They don't want us travelling around at all, it would seem. So we've got a little over half an hour before we get David Griffiths on. And we'll be talking everything golf. But first, what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring up a wee short story about why these next 2 golf tournaments are really big for Scotland in particular, and big for Scottish players in particular. So a wee bit about myself. I picked up golf during the lockdown, and I find it such an incredible game. One, it's really difficult. The actual ceiling at golf is so high, it's insane. And anyone that's ever picked up a club and hit a ball can tell you just how hard the game actually is. But what an incredible game it is. And there was nothing better for me than, you drive it to the golf course, you throw your phones in the car, and you're out with your pals for a couple of hours playing golf. Without the phones. So again, it's like a mental health break away from the phones. It's fantastic. And just, I think the element of walking around some nice scenic areas in the countryside, all the greenery, it's really fantastic to get out and about. And really, Scotland is just such a magical place to play golf in. So with that in mind, recently we've had 2 Scottish golfers, Ewan Ferguson just last week, and a month ago, Robert McIntyre, winning tournaments across the globe. And this is why these next 2 weeks are massive for the Scottish golf calendar, is because we're coming off the back of 2 Scottish golfers with huge wins. Won the PGA Tour and the DP World Tour and the BMW International Open. Ewan Ferguson won just last week in Germany for, I think, around £400,000 or euros. Incredible victories for these men. And we're going to bring up their stories as well. So last week we had Ewan Ferguson, and this was his emotional interview after he won.
I honestly can't believe it. The last 4 holes, I felt like I was in a dream. I just didn't think that this was actually happening. It was crazy. I was hitting it so well. I was hitting it so much further than usual. I just felt like I just wanted to do it. For my dad, my mum, my sister, my brother at home, like, you know, I love them so much, and I want to play every shot I hit it with them in mind all the time. So it's just it's such a hard game. You know, I've been moaning like mad the last 2 months, and with also being sick, and obviously the exemption with this, there's so much weight off my shoulders, and yeah, I'm so happy. I can't believe it.
I guess you just mentioned it there, the exemption into the Open. It confirms your spot. I mean, growing up, what has that tournament meant to you, and knowing that you're going to be teeing it up?
Obviously, teeing it up in Troon's the Open Championship was a tournament that everyone wants to play in, and you know, I feel like I could do well there, and the Scottish Open next week too. It's just such exciting times for me.
See, you can hear it in the guy's voice how much golf means to him. To Ewan Ferguson, it means everything to him. But it doesn't mean everything to the Scottish Government, does it? And the fact that, this gentleman hasn't been congratulated by the Scottish Government on such a historic win, and enhancing golf, and it's an advertisement for our country, a player like Ewan Ferguson winning a golf tournament. It's an advertisement. It's an advertisement for the game of golf, the home of golf, which is Scotland. But again, where is the congratulations for John Swinney? Where is the sort of inviting him to Butte House and wishing him luck in his next tournament, which is starting tomorrow, likely, at the Scottish Open? Where is it? But again, this it was a fantastic win for Ewan, and I'm not going to take anything away from his victory, but I didn't think, I think last month's victory for Robert McIntyre in Canada was truly something spectacular, and it was such an advertisement for Scotland. It really, really was. So Robert McIntyre, a wee backstory on it is he had parted ways with his caddy shortly before the Canadian Open, and he needed somebody to fill in. So he's phoning people, hello, will you be my caddy? Hello, will you be my caddy? And people are like, well, I'm not doing it. I'm not doing it. So eventually it gets on the phone to his old man, his dad. And he says, please, Dad, will you come and caddy for me in the Canadian Open? And of course, being any dad, I'm sure he's jump at the opportunity. His dad is a greenkeeper up in Oban at Glencruiton Golf Club. So he's only went and won the tournament with his dad caddying for him. And it was such an incredible tournament if you had watched it for the beginning. And this guy should have, again, the Scottish Government have overlooked this gentleman. Such an advertisement for Scotland, such an advertisement for Scottish golf, such an advertisement for family values, and yet overlooked. So we're going to play the clip of Robert McIntyre's emotional win as well. Now that I've given you the backstory of it. So incredible scenes in the Canadian Open last month.
A father and son, together forever.
I'm going to go ahead and say that there should be a film made about Robert McIntyre and his win, his victory in Canada with his dad as a caddy. It truly is such an awesome story. And if you want a wee bit more on that, you should really watch his 30-minute press conference after it, because it comes across as it's so genuinely, or such a genuine person. A few questions were asked about, whether or not, because he had taken a week off before he'd won that tournament, and he says, how much did coming home to Scotland mean for you in this win? And he was basically saying, it's a bit different. I love it when I come home to Scotland and my pals treat me as just Bob McIntyre, the man, and no Robert McIntyre, the PGA Tour golfer. It was a great press conference. I've not got any clips of that. I was going to give that to you, but I just don't think it's... if you want to follow that story, that's up to you. So again, this is I know that you've got the backstory between these two really very close events. It was only a month ago Robert won in Canada. It was only last week Ewan won in Germany, right? On the lead up to Scotland's two biggest golfing tournaments, the Scottish Open in North Berwick, which we'll get a wee map up. It's in Gullane. I'm going to get corrected on it. It's in Gullane or Gullane, whatever you want to say, on the East Coast, right there, right next to North Berwick, next door. And then the week after that, we're over on the West Coast in Troon, where the British Open is being held. And to think these, especially North Berwick, when we look at North Berwick, the transport links are going to be quite limited already to North Berwick, being it so remote and so on the coast. So you'd think that there's going to be North Berwick is going to be flooded for the next few days. This weekend is going to be absolutely bouncing in North Berwick. And having the pleasure of visiting there a few times myself, it's got such incredible shops, great ice cream places. It's just a great wee place to take the family. And likewise, next week in Troon, this might be quite hard to get to as well by train. So you're likely going to be taking coaches or taxis or private hires all the way down to Troon. And Troon again next week is going to be absolutely heaving. And even having the privilege of having been visited Troon before, such a great wee town, amazing wee pubs, and we'll have David Griffiths on in about 20 minutes to talk about just how much it means for the West Coast in terms of the British Open being held in Royal Troon this year. So again, I just feel that overall this slashing of the Scotrail services, it's doing Scotland such a disservice here by a disservice to Scottish golf, a disservice to Scottish tourism. To think that if you run a business in either of these towns or surrounding villages, you would think you would want all the transport links possible, everything, and then some. You would want extra transport put on, never mind services cut. So again, I feel like Scotland really is just doing Scotland such a huge disservice here when it comes to promoting the golf, promoting our events. Transmit itself is a huge event, and to have services limited, it's just simply unacceptable, guys. It really is. It reminds me again of another story where the Glasgow city centre, the footfall's fallen by 400,000. The footfall in Glasgow city centre has fallen by 400,000 people. And what they want to introduce? A tourist tax. Fantastic. That's going to great. That's going to make more people come in, guys. No, it isn't. It feels like a war on people getting out their house in the morning. It really is annoying. So we're counting down the minutes until David Griffiths arrives, and we'll all be talking about golf. And what I'm going to do with David, I've told him over the phone this morning that you're getting a day off. You're getting a day off, David. I don't need you to talk about anything political today. I need you to talk about golf and what golf means to you. And if you've got any golfers in the comments, please do get them in. We've got Bobby Boucher. Great to see you back on the live. It's great to be back, Bobby. It really is. And I think we're going to make a regular thing of the Niall Fraser show. So what we're going to do is we're ploughing on with the momentum. So we've got over 400 viewers here in tonight. Thank you so much for tuning in. We had a bumper election stream, and I'd just like to thank all the amazing guests that we had on. We had Ash, the press and journalist. He was with me all the way up until the exit polls. And then we had David Griffiths discussing the exit polls after. We had Craig Houston on, was his comedic value really cementing home what happened that night. What else do we have? We had John Watt to bring the noise. We had Alistair McConaughey, Force for Good. We had Nick Mitchell. We had so many great people on that show the other night, and I can't thank them enough. Not to mention David Scott with his keen political analysis. So again, we're counting down the minutes to when David Griffiths arrives on set. But let's read some stuff for Jim Sellers, shall we? Jim Sellers, right, according to Michael, this is written by the Scottish Daily Mail, Michael Blackway, the Scottish political editor, ladies and gentlemen. John Swinney is facing growing calls to quit as SNP members fight back against the Stalinist leadership and a further escalation of the civil war engulfing the party. Former SNP Deputy Leader Jim Sellers yesterday made a call to arms to oust the incompetent leaders. I seem to detect a wee bit of vested interest there, Jim. Maybe Alex Salmond should come back. Again, I'm being reminded that we've still got more to talk about. I'm missing a segment here before David comes back. What I'm calling the mirror image. We're going to have a look at the British Parliament briefly. So we'll finish the story on the Stalinist leadership. I think that is quite a great description here by Jim Sellers. But again, I can detect the notion of a vested interest here. Why is Jim Sellers saying this, guys? Why? Does he want the best for the SNP? You tell me. I don't think so. I think, like me, he wants to see the death of the SNP. I think we can all sort of gain from the SNP being dead and buried. But anyway, he accused the top brass, led by First Minister, of being a busted flush in the wake of the general election hammering. Mr. Sellers said voters had no faith that those running a failed government can improve performance and set out a series of steps for members to take back power. He claimed the party was turned into a leadership cult under Nicola Sturgeon, who was described as Stalin's wee sister. That's a hard one to take, Sturgeon, isn't it? Hard one to take. In an open letter to SNP members, Mr. Sellers said the party had to be reconstructed and the tarnished old guards have to step aside. Again, it reminds me of our video that we produced just before the election, guys. Just before the election, I put it out. The SNP Grand Walls. It's the same people. I'll not put it on that long ago. I'll put it on for a few seconds, but you'll see what I mean. The Four Horsemen, guys. You seen him right there. Right there. He had hair back then. So he did. He's been in the SNP so long, he's went bald. He's almost like a Flynn. But I've never seen Stephen Flynn with hair. But it's incredibly, John Swinney started in the SNP with a head of hair, ladies and gentlemen. And now, 14 years later, 17 years later, however long it is, he's still there. And it's exactly the same as what Jim Sellers is describing here. A leadership cult. He has been in that ring for so very long. We started Sturgeon, with Salmond, and then with the injection of Hamza there for like a brief segue. We had a scooter segue into Hamza. Again, just incredible to see him way back when. And he's still there. It's ridiculous. In an open letter to SNP members, he said the party had to be reconstructed and the tarnished old guard to step aside. Well, I couldn't agree anymore. But this is with the perspective of trying to save the SNP. I don't really want to save the SNP. I think they should be sinking with grace, if that's possible. He added, whether that happens, it's up to you. It is a responsibility that you cannot escape. Another 2024 beckons in 26. If you dodge, we'll turn to page 6 to continue the story. And if you dodge it, you will be dealing what could be a fatal blow to independence. Well, Jim, I think that was done last week, my friend. Mr. Sillis urged local branches to demand a special conference to make a series of radical changes to the party's constitution to take back power from leadership. That does need to happen because, again, we're going to end up with this leadership cult, this WhatsApp group, the cult of WhatsApp. The cult of WhatsApp ruling Scotland. It's ridiculous. But a comment here for Billy Hepburn. He's only been in the job 2 weeks. Oh, I think what we are seeing a wee bit of acceleration here, Billy. What's happening is we've had Sturgeon was in for so long. And, you know, with Sturgeon, eased right into Hamza, didn't we? And Hamza wasn't there that long either in the grand scheme of things. And now I think the acceleration is going faster and faster. The way I describe it is the SNP are going right round the drain. They're circling the drain, Billy. And as they get closer to the puckle, things are accelerating. They're in the vortex portion where it's just getting faster and faster. And now Hamza's been swallowed up. And now even quickly, I believe, Swinney is going to be swallowed up. I don't think he'll last even as long as Hamza. So, well, let's continue with Jim Sillis. He called for repentance. That's what a great word. See, Jim Sillis is saying everything right in this, guys. He's saying, I'm not going to take it away from him. He's saying everything right because that's what the SNP need to do. The SNP need to repent for what they've done. They need to get on their knees and beg for forgiveness for what they've done to Scotland and what they're continuing to do for Scotland, which is nothing. They're driving it into the wall. He called for repentance because last week's election result was inevitable, given how the Sturgeon-Swinney era misled the movement, lost its common sense in government and promoted marginal issues as national priorities, while education, housing, NHS and infrastructure were handled with incompetence. Absolutely sublime, Jim. I mean, everything that mattered to the public was disregarded. Everything that didn't matter to the public was under the microscope. You couldn't get away from it. All the stuff with trans issues, all the stuff with LGBT, you couldn't get away from it. It was constant. And again, well, at the A9, sitting unjeweled after all this time. How many accidents have there to be on the A9 for things to happen? How many people have to die on that road before the SNP will act? You tell me in the comments. And they won't act at all. Billy again saying roll on Holyrood. This is the thing, Billy. We need to keep the momentum going all the way to 26 and absolutely crush them. And again, where are they going to land with Swinney at the helm again? Are they going to go from a huge amount of MSPs to a very low amount of MSPs? That's what I think. I think we're just going to see a continuation of them falling and hemorrhaging politicians like they're diving off the ship. And the last people clutching up the Titanic will be Sturgeon and maybe even Kate Forbes. Hold on. Take a deep breath, Kate. We're going under. Oh, crikey. So last Thursday wasn't about who the Scots sent to Westminster. It was a referendum on the Scottish Government and a condemnatory verdict was delivered. Few of the people, and it is they who matter, have any faith that the ones who have run a failed government can, by discovering some hitherto unknown ability, take its governance performance to a better level. Absolutely true. That people have no faith in the SNP to deliver anything but misery and failure. If the SNP is to recover, as it must, if the SNP movement is to have any hope of achieving its aim, the party members should also realise that they have cause to repent. You acquiesced in changes to the constitution which shifted all power to a leadership cult, with the party then run by Stalin's wee sister imposing a politburo, I've never seen that word before, of two exercising an iron grip on the organisation and the annual conference. So I've never been to an annual SNP conference. I would like to actually attend it, just so I can cause a wee bit of bother. You've got so used to not thinking for yourselves that you allowed the party to be hollowed out intellectually. And this is what this might be sort of endemic of a lot of the other parties as well. You know, I feel that a lot of politicians here in Scotland, they just go to work and they expect everyone else to do the work for them. You know, I don't need to think. I just need to read whatever's been put in front of me in the morning. And this is what we've got this scripted back and forth in Holyrood, which is just so monotonous and annoying. You know, somebody will stand up and they'll read a bit of paper that's been written for them hours before, and you just sit down and read the bit of paper, and someone else across the room reads their bit of paper that's been written for them. What an absolute joke we've got here in Scotland. And it's so see-through, it's laughable. What's Bob's country bunker saying? Wouldn't they be surprised if they try and increase the number of MSPs in Holyrood? Lots of unemployables looking for work. Well, there has been a lot of bitterness in the old SPAD, the old ex-SPADs for the SNP. We've seen some. Wings of Scotland's been putting out some really excellent pictures of tweets made by SPADs who have lost their job. And the bitterness, you can taste it on your tongue. It's so bitter. And it's glorious to see all the SNP politicians, their SPADs, their runners, all just fighting in a sack. And again, rats will eventually eat each other, ladies and gentlemen. So we've only got 10 minutes until David Griffiths turned up for his golfing segment, but we'll continue on. And what we will do actually is we'll move on to the next segment of the show. So what's Bob's country bunker saying again? The Welsh Assembly increased their membership, I believe. Interesting. So we're moving on to the next segment, which I am going to be calling the mirror image. So after the dust have settled, after we've had all the sort of pomp and ceremony of swearing in all the new MPs down in Westminster, the dragging of the new speaker to his chair, which is just so horrible to look at. If you're going to drag him to the chair, drag him to the chair. But I mean, he's not getting dragged. It's been walked to the chair. Come on, guys. At least if you're going to do all this traditional stuff, do it right. It's pathetic. So what we're going to do is we're going to look at the mirror image. All this, over the last few years, we've been looking at Rishi Sunak on the Prime Minister's bench, giving it to Keir Starmer. And now we're seeing the opposite. We're seeing the mirror image. We're seeing Keir Starmer giving it to Rishi Sunak.
The Prime Minister, Sir Keir Starmer.
Mr. Speaker-elect, on behalf of the whole House, may I be the first to congratulate you on your re-election. And I'm grateful that new members will be able to look to you as they begin the great privilege of serving their constituents in this House. Mr. Speaker-elect, you preside over a new Parliament, the most diverse Parliament by race and gender this country has ever seen. And I'm proud of the part that my party has played in that, proud of the part that every party has played in that, including in this intake, the largest cohort of LGBT plus MPs of any Parliament in the world. And given all that diversity, Mr. Speaker-elect, I hope you will not begrudge me for a slight departure from convention to also pay tribute to the new mother of the House, Diane Abbott, who has done so much in her career over so many years to fight for a Parliament that truly represents modern Britain. We welcome her back to her place. And now, as in any new Parliament, we have the opportunity and the responsibility to put an end to a politics that has too often seemed self-serving and self-obsessed, and to replace that politics of performance with the politics of service. So whatever our political differences, it's now time to turn the page, unite in a common endeavour of national renewal, and make this new Parliament a Parliament of service. Thank you.
I see, and this is the thing. He gets up, his first speech at the benches, ladies and gentlemen. We're so diverse. This is the most diverse Parliament we've ever returned. We're so diverse. Oh, we've returned so many LGBTQ XYZ politicians. Come off it, guys. This is so blisteringly annoying. It's so insane. Nobody actually cares. Nobody's looking at the makeup of the Parliament and saying, this is unacceptable. We do not have enough homosexuals in the Parliament. What is happening? What is happening, ladies and gentlemen? It's just ridiculous at this point. But they're starting as they mean to continue, Labour. And we've had the appointment of Sir Patrick Vallance as the science minister. You know, the same guy that locked us all down. He has been made science minister. It's just, they're starting as they mean to continue. It's just so hilarious. So we shouldn't have too long before David Griffiths joins us in about 5 minutes. Hopefully he's been quite prompt on the time. We're almost at 500 viewers, ladies and gentlemen. Let's get that cranked up. If you can, please do share the broadcast. We've got the mere one viewer on YouTube, and we've got 500 almost on Twitter. Just shows you that YouTube is dead to me. It's dead to me. I'm focused entirely on X, where I believe, I'm yet to have any content removed from X. We're hoping that continues. But YouTube, they just take stuff down for a laugh. Right, so what else have we got in the news? This is an interesting thing that I picked up in the news. Listen to this. Well, we might put on we'll put on my classic video after it. But have you been following Suella Braverman, ladies and gentlemen?
Far, far too many Tory politicians agreed and still agree that the progress flag must be flown. To be kind, to be inclusive. It shows how liberal and progressive we are. And that's what many Conservatives want us to be. Well, the progress flag says to me one monstrous thing, that I was a member of a government that presided over the mutilation of our children in our hospitals and from our schools.
Interesting that, isn't it? All of a sudden, Suella Braverman wants to speak out about the mutilation of children under her government. Under her government, ladies and gentlemen. All of a sudden, why? Why the sudden shift? Why? Is it because they are now starting to see the writings on the wall when it comes to transgender ideology? Is it that she's angling for a position in another party, or angling for a better position in the Tory party, or try to pivot the Tories into a more palatable area of the electorate? I don't know. And I don't think the Tories can be saved at this point. I think they've been brought, similar to the SNP, they've been dealt a critical and fatal blow. Never to return. Hopefully, never to return. I see David Griffiths is he's backstage waiting. And we're going to be talking everything golf. So it's going to be a bit of a night off for David. He's going to be talking no politics at all, hopefully. And he's all going to be talking about golf. So with further ado, that is 11 o'clock, and we're going to get David Griffiths on. So welcome to the stage, David. Welcome, David. How are you doing?
I'm doing better. I'm not quite as tired as I was the last few times I've been online. So yeah, I'm doing okay. Thank you. How are you?
I'm fantastic. Welcome to the Niall Fraser Show, and thanks for coming on again in such short notice. And I gather you'll still be in great spirits over the result last week.
Yeah, still pretty ecstatic about it all. Euphoric, I think. Yeah, so yeah, it's certainly not diminishing. The feeling of happiness certainly hasn't dissipated any. So yes, I'm still feeling very, very pleased.
Right, so I brought you on tonight, and as promised, we're not going to talk too much politics at all, really. What I wanted to hear for you, let's start off with yourself. I know you're a golfer because we've played golf before, and I know you're a West Coaster. So what I wanted to from you was your sort of story, getting into golf.
Yep.
When did you first start playing? What you think of the game golf, and what does it mean to Scotland, really?
Yeah. Okay. So I started playing golf in probably the late 60s when I was just a wee lad. I lived in Troon, a short distance away from what they call the 3 municipal courses. Which are 3 courses all parallel to one another. The first 18th holes are all parallel, and it makes incredibly good use of this space. And one of the courses was designed almost exclusively for children, particularly during the summer. And so that's where I learned to play, really. And my pals and I used to literally walk around with our little pencil bags just round the corner. I remember a season ticket was £1.50.
Oh, beautiful.
I know, that was it. So we got to play, and we got to join Troon St Medans, as it was called, which was the junior golf club. And we just got into the game. A lot of us had hickory shafted clubs. We weren't very good. We just used to knock it up as far as we could, and gradually got a bit better, I suppose. And then Troon, of course, being a hotbed of golf, I think there are 5 golf courses in the town, or 2 just outside the town as well. I mean, it's incredible. When you get the train down from Glasgow, as soon as you get to Irvine, all you can see is golf courses either side for miles, all the way down to Prestwick and even into Ayr as well. So fabulous. So that's when I started playing, and then when I became a teenager, got into it a little bit more, I realised that all you really need to do is knock it down the middle and then take a 5-iron or something and knock it onto the green. And if you can 2-putt, you're going to get a par. So you don't need to do anything too extravagant. So that's what I did, and I've never had the most classically beautiful swing, but I can hit it. As a friend said to me at school, we were up practicing, and he said to me, in the colloquialism that they used in those days, he said, "You're dead haphazard, but you hit the ball good." Okay, I'll take that. Yeah, that would do. I'm quite happy with that as a précis of my golf game. Yeah. So I got into a lot more when I was at uni as well, and then just throughout working life, golf has always had an involvement in business and just in what we did at weekends as well. And so, being on several golfing holidays, Florida, Portugal, Tunisia, Spain, several times, it's just unbelievably rewarding sport, fabulous. And I used to love going away, or Le Touquet in France as well. Went and played there. So I've been to quite a few places to play golf. So it's been terrific. But I'm back now in Ayrshire, as you know, and very much enjoying playing there. And in terms of Scotland, I mean, it's so much identified so closely with Scotland as a sport, and we've had some of Scotland's most successful sports people have been golfers. Looking back in my time watching the game, I started watching it when Eric Brown was this Ryder Cup captain. He'd been this great Scottish player in the 50s, very kind of temperamental. There was a guy called John Letters as well, John Panton also. All these guys were like the guys I knew of who were Scottish players back in the day. And then you had in the 60s, some of the guys like, of course, you had Tony Jacklin and these guys who were English. And then in the 70s and 80s, you had Bernard Gallagher, and then Sam Torrance, and then Sandy Lyle, Ken Brown. And of course, Sandy Lyle went on to be hugely successful, won 2 majors, a truly great player as world number 1. Then Colin Montgomery, who's almost a contemporary of mine, he came through and he won God knows how many orders of merit. So there have always been hugely successful Scottish golfers. And I remember I watched a little bit of it yesterday on Rewind, the Open in 1999 at Carnoustie, when Jean Van de Velde had a 3-stroke lead in the last, proceeded to take a treble bogey.
Oh my God.
I know, so it went to a playoff, and of course Scotland's Paul Lawrie came through and won it in 4 holes
Wow.
at Carnoustie. I mean, amazing. So that was, I think, was that the last guy from Great Britain who won the Open? I'm trying to think if it is or not. I think it might be. We've had Rory McIlroy and Darren Clarkson signed, but they're from United Kingdom rather from Great Britain. Anyway, so it's been terrific. And in terms of for Scotland, I was looking at one of the ads tonight, and it said that there will be, I think it's 240,000 people are anticipating will arrive in Troon, or certainly 240,000
over the weekend.
Exactly, over the course of the next week. I mean, Troon only holds 14,000 people. So how on earth are they going to fit them all in?
So what does this mean to Troon? Me and you have had the pleasure of having a wee drink in Troon. And what a beautiful place it is. What does it mean to all the local businesses when the golf comes round, David?
It's bonanza time for them, really. 8 years ago, South Ayrshire Council decided that they would stop people drinking outside, and they were a little bit puritanical about it. It was almost like a preview of COVID, so it was a little bit joyless then. But in previous years here, you've had people drinking on the pavements, you've had restaurants and bars so busy that they're having to get couples to share tables for four, people who don't know each other, because you just can't fit them in otherwise. And so it's a terrific time for people. There are new bars opening up in Troon. There's a bar opening up at the top of Portland Street where an old bar used to be. There's another bar just in the process of opening up now, a new Tempura bar. Bars are opening up speculatively to meet the demand of people who are going to come into town just looking for somewhere to drink, because Troon's got a lot of bars, but it's only got enough bars really to hold maybe 200, 300 people, not 60,000. So
it might be party atmosphere in Troon for the next next weekend.
Absolutely.
And what about and likewise, we've got just on the East Coast this time, just next to North Berwick, we have the Scottish Open starting tomorrow, David.
Yes.
And again, I'm going to play, just because we've been over 500 viewers now, I'm going to replay the clip of Robert McIntyre's win in Canada just a month ago. A historic win with his dad on the back.
Yes.
A father and son, together forever.
Could you imagine, David, if you had a son that played golf, and you had the opportunity to caddy for him, and he won a massive event like the Canadian Open, just how big that would be? And with his press conference afterward, the guy is so down to earth.
Yeah.
He's saying, well, now my mum and dad don't need to worry about their mortgage.
Yes. Fabulous.
And it's so down to earth. It was truly humbling to see him win that. And just it really was. So he took home, I think, 1.8 million as a tournament purse, with his dad incredibly getting the caddy boat fee, which is generally what 10% or something.
Exactly.
So, it's a giant payday for the family, and I'm sure. I mean, it's life-changing money for a Scottish family. 1.8 million, isn't it?
Yes,
and then it's just insane. So, I mean, what sort of difficulty levels is it to win a PGA tournament, David?
Believe me, it's incredibly difficult, because these are the best players in the world, really, the best tournament players in the world, certainly. I mean, the European Tour's excellent also, but the PGA traditionally has got the most skillful players, and it's almost a different style of golf there. It's this target golf, if you like, because they water the greens, although they also make them very slopey and short grass. So it's not easy. So it's over here. You have to play with the wind a lot more, and you have to play, like almost links golf. Certainly in this country, you have to play a lot of links golf. So it's a different type of golf over there. These are young guys, very fit guys. You can see by the build, they hit the ball enormous distances. So it's difficult and getting more difficult every year. So for a young guy from Oban, which is where Bob is from, to go over there in his first year on the tour, he struggled a little bit. I think he struggled a bit with homesickness, and he struggled a bit with, I think, visas and stuff for his employees. I think he has had it tough, because, it's not easy getting into America. If they don't know who you are, they think you're Osama bin Laden. That's what America's always been like. You know, they're just terribly suspicious about people coming in. So that, I think, has been very difficult for the guy. But for him to get, I know he's had some difficulties with caddies, but for him to get his old dad to go over and win a tournament there, really, I mean, he was in the lead pretty much from halfway. He held on to it. And on the last day, I don't think he was ever caught. He came close to
being was very close to getting caught. You know, I was watching the last day, and it was very close. He was within one shot.
Yes.
So he just needed a par on the last hole, and he's had a 2-putt to win it. And that last putt, I mean, it would have been absolutely surreal to be in that moment, David. And then to look over and say, of all people, your dad.
Yes.
It's just right there, David. It's just incredible. It's such an incredible story, isn't it? It's you know, it reminds me of the old golfing films. You know, was it The Greatest Game Ever Played?
Yep.
Have you ever seen that with Shia LaBeouf, a young Shia LaBeouf?
That's right.
And then. So, I mean, this is such a glorious time for Scottish golf, right?
Yes, it is, indeed. We've had a pretty fallow spell for about, not the last couple of years, but before that, it's been a long time since we had any players really challenging at the top level. And it was, I think there were a couple of Ryder Cups where we didn't have any representation at all. I remember they picked Andrew Coulthard as a wild card pick once, and they only gave him one game and he lost it. So we really were struggling a bit. I think that's when Mark James was captain. Then Bernard Langer, and when he was last captain, he picked Monty as a wild card pick. And other than that, there weren't any Scots guys qualifying. McIntyre did extremely well to qualify last year after having won his first tournament. And then he got in, and of course, to the Ryder Cup, that is, and he scored 2.5 points out of 3. So he really arrived with a real splash. Fabulous. And I think that's inspired other guys. You see these names in the tour quite a lot. Connor Symon's one, Ewan Ferguson.
I see him a lot, You
see them a lot. And in the past, you've had guys like Alistair Forsyth and Scott Jamieson, both Rangers fans as well, incidentally. I've seen Alistair at the Rick Games before. Anyway, latterly, certainly, I think Ewan Ferguson has now won 3 times in the tour, which is, that's bloody impressive. I know Connor Symon's won as well. But for McIntyre, who did win, I think, twice on the European Tour, to go over there and win on the PGA Tour, a tournament like the Canadian Open in his first year with a 7-figure purse, wow. I mean, that's very, very impressive. The one thing I guess you could say is, well, Scotty Scheffler wasn't playing. It seems that Scotty Scheffler wins every time he tees the ball up these days. But he's not going to win every game. There's not a chance. So they take nothing away from him. It's an incredible achievement, a real top drawer achievement for a young man. It doesn't matter if he's a moment in Scotland or anywhere else. Just for a young guy to go out there and win it in that fashion with such bravery, and the whole story attached to it. Somebody will make a movie about that one day. I'm sure of it. I'm absolutely convinced.
That is on the cards, and anyone that's not picked that up should indeed pick that up. And just because you mentioned Ewan Ferguson there, just last week over in Germany, he picks up another victory. So another Scottish golfer at the PK's game. And this will segue right into the segment we're going to talk about after, but we'll talk about it. And this is almost like a more emotional win, it feels. It feels like maybe he's a younger man. It means more to him. And just hear the passion in his voice here.
I honestly can't believe it. The last 4 holes, I felt like I was in a dream. I just didn't think that this was actually happening. It was crazy. I was hitting it so well. I was hitting it so much further than usual. I just felt like I just wanted to do it for my dad, my mum, my sister, my brother at home. I love them so much, and I want to play every shot I hit it with them in mind all the time. So it's just it's such a hard game. I've been moaning like mad the last 2 months, and with also being sick, and obviously the exemption with this, there's so much weight off my shoulders, and I'm so happy. I can't believe it.
I guess you just mentioned it there, the exemption into the Open. It confirms your spot. I mean, growing up, what has that tournament meant to you, and knowing that you're going to be teeing it up?
Obviously, teeing it up in Troon's the Open Championship was a tournament that everyone wants to play in. And I feel like I could do well there, and the Scottish Open next week too. It's just such exciting times for me.
See, again, David, this is golf isn't just a game of skill, ability, perseverance. It's also a really mental game in terms of you have to be A1 and just the best mental playing there is. It's such. I mean, if you want to speak to our viewers just about the sort of mental aspect of golf, just briefly.
Sure. I mean, they say that 90% of golf is between the ears. That's what they say. You have to have incredible strength of mind, really, because you know what I mean here. Regularly, I've stood on the tee and at the first hole in the home course I used to play in Troon, and you go par at the first, par at the second, par at the third, par at the fourth. I've done that several times. Now it gets to the fifth, and you start thinking, right, what am I going to do? I'm going to have to get it right. And you start panicking, and you need immense strength of mind to be able to keep doing that and to keep in the groove and keep hitting the shot without a mistake, because it's very easy either to be too timid or to be too reckless, and you just blow it. So it's all about, if you like, having the presence of mind and the strength of mind to push away distractions and just focus on what you're doing. This is just me playing on my own quite often at a council course in Troon. Doesn't matter.
Can you imagine then teeing it up in front of thousands of spectators with millions of pounds on the line?
Exactly.
It's just, I mean, the stress must be insurmountable for some. And this is why it's such an incredible game, David, right? Because it's a game of literally millimeters.
Yes.
A millimeters can make the difference between slicing it into the trees or hooking it into the sea. It's insane just the levels that golf has played at. It really is. And now that we've sort of brought all this golfing expertise and thanks to yourself, and we've talked about golf, right? Ewan Ferguson talks about what it means for him to play at Royal Troon. It means so much to him just to be able to play. Never mind place, never mind day well. Just to play in the tournament is an honour in itself. It really is. Amongst the best players in the world. The same with Robert McIntyre. They'll both be in the Scottish Open, I'm sure, and the British Open.
Yep,
David,
they'll certainly both be playing in both tournaments now. That's right, and you can see it in Ewan Ferguson's voice there. I mean, he's clearly very, very emotional. He's only in Germany. It's only about hours away, but even so, he's thinking, "Oh, I really miss my mum and dad." And all that. You think, "My goodness, wow, what a nice guy." And every time I'm friendly with a lot of guys from. I went to secondary school with in England. One of them was like a county champion golfer, and anytime anything happens with anything that's relating to, say, Scottish golf especially, I always send it to him and say, "Did you see this?" And he said, "Wow, what a really grounded, what a lovely guy." And that's what he seemed like. He just seemed so straight and so completely what would you say, uncomplicated, and just such a nice bloke. And they kept talking about the exemption there, and the exemption meaning if you don't get enough points in the tour and you're not winning enough tournaments, you're not high enough up the list, you don't get into these tournaments. You have to have won a tournament or maybe finish second in a tournament in the previous year in order to get into an event like the Open. They call it an Open because it is theoretically open to everybody, but unless you qualify from the tour, you have to go into these qualification shoot-offs. There's been one at Dundonald just down the road from here, and there are some all over the country, but you only get 2 or so people qualifying from each one. So it's incredibly difficult just to get to the starting gate. And for these guys, you can see how much it means to them just to be there, because I think Ewan was born in Glasgow, and he's obviously, Troon's very close to where he grew up, I guess, and it's such an iconic venue, and to have the Open here right in your doorstep, and to miss out on it, that would be tough, So for him, it would have been an enormous challenge, and it would have been a big thing for him, thinking, I've got to do this. And of course, that builds its own pressure. So, golf is an unbelievably difficult. I think the only thing that makes golf a little bit easier is at least your opponent can't tackle you.
Well, speaking of tackles, I mean, how well did England do tonight? Who's the sub they brought on? Ollie Watkins.
They brought on Cole Palmer and Ollie Watkins. Ollie Watkins, the Aston Villa striker. I remember when, what's his name, Phil Foden. I saw about an hour of the game, and Foden was terrific. His first half, he was unbelievable. He was a very, very skillful player, Phil Foden. And of course, Ian
couldn't help but mention the England game there, David. But let's keep it on point, right? So we've heard for Ewan Ferguson what it means to him just to play in the Open. Robert McIntyre, what it means to win the Canadian Open, right? So we've just off the back of 2 major wins for 2 major Scottish players who will be stars of the future, no doubt about it.
Absolutely.
And knew what the Scottish government done, David. They've axed 60, almost 600 Scotrail services, almost 26% of their service on the eve of the two biggest events in the Scottish golfing calendar. It's unbelievable to me the dissatisfied, the almost disregard for Scottish golf for one. The disregard for Scottish businesses too, because you know as well as I do that North Berwick and all the surrounding villages and towns are going to have a massive boost to their revenue over the next weekend, just with the golf coming through town. You know, last Scottish Genesis Open, 72,500 attendees over the 4 days in the East Coast of Scotland. Fast forward to next week, we've got the British Open. And your neck of the woods, the good old Troon, Royal Troon, and that is going to be another mammoth day for the West Coast. It's going to be a mammoth weekend for the West Coast, and for Scotrail to act services just prior to this on the eve of the Scottish calendar. I think it's unacceptable, David. I don't know.
Absolutely. I mean, I think it's no great surprise, because what it seems like is that the employees of Scotrail have been more or less emotionally blackmailed into carrying on working long hours and overtime just to keep the services going. And I think eventually they've said, we're not doing this anymore, guys. You're going to have to get more staff. And of course, the Scottish Government's got no money. We know that. And so this is, let's not forget, it's nationalised. So it's down to the Scottish Government, just like the ferries and stuff. It's all down to them. Like the same with the health service as well, teaching. All of these are Scottish Government responsibilities, and there isn't an ounce of, as we know, of any kind of financial or business nous in the Scottish Government. So they are constantly at the risk of having disputes like this. The one thing they've always said in Scotland and the SNP in the last 3 years is, oh, we haven't had a single day of strikes in the NHS. Yeah, because you bought them all off. You just paid them loads of money just to stay at work. And the service is still absolutely terrible. Whereas with these guys, well, they're not, presumably these guys are probably asking for an awful lot more money and they're not getting it. So they're saying, fine, okay, in that case, we're not going to work.
I mean, this is prior to the ballot even being done on industrial action, David. This is purely down to there not being enough drivers. And as we've seen earlier in the show, I'll bring up the image again, just so you know, Nicola Sturgeon happily displaying in her COVID mask, ladies and gentlemen. Remind her name. Remember the COVID mask. Look, it's even got Scotrail written on it, guys. It's even got Scotrail branded masks. Can you believe this, ladies and gentlemen? And thanks for everyone that's tuning in. Over 700 viewers now. We're approaching 800. Keep sharing if you can. I mean, just the mask alone is hilarious. Yes. But look, what we want to examine here in this picture is the date. April 1st, April Fools, 2022. 2 years ago now, ladies and gentlemen. And this, all the pundits, all the news pundits, everyone in the media will tell you, oh, it takes a long time to train a train driver. And a lot of responsibility is placed on a train driver. Absolutely it is. They are basically in charge, or they're charged with the responsibility of all their passengers. So it's an incredibly responsible job. And I think, I mean, overall, I don't think, do you think it would be long to recruit train drivers, David, given the fact that the pay, I understand, is quite large. Your job is, I mean, in terms of jobs and occupations, I think train driver would be right up there in terms of one, skill, pay, and quality of work. If the Scottish Government wanted to require you to work every single day as overtime, but be that as it may, I reckon just going around Scotland and how scenic it is.
Yes,
I think it would be quite a rewarding occupation.
Well, I don't think, quite frankly, I agreed. I mean, I think it would. I don't think it would be too stressful, possibly. I mean, unless there's like congestion in the line and stuff, that might be a bit. Get you down a little bit, but it's not like, you know, a bus driver even who's genuinely interfacing with the public, which can be difficult at times. And we know there was a bus driver who was stabbed and killed in Huntly or somewhere. not that long ago, which is an awful thing. But you don't get that happening to train drivers, really, because they're quite cocooned, I guess, apart from when they're walking along the platform. So, I mean, I don't think it would be a particularly arduous job. I don't mean to disrespect it or anything. I'm sure it's got its challenges, but I wouldn't have thought that it's the sort of job you should have difficulty recruiting staff. So, I mean, it just seems like anything else. They just can't staff businesses properly because, to go back to the point, they don't know how to run businesses. All they know how to do is throw money at things from this limitless, bottomless well of money that eventually does run out, and then they have no idea what to do next. None at all. They can't plan anything. They can't plan staffing levels. The Transport Minister previously was Jenny Gilruth, who's, well, we know what she is. She's just, all she can do is shout at people. That's all she does. Now she's the Education Minister. So, I mean, guess what? I guess how that's going to go. But
I'm sorry to interrupt again. It's let's examine the data on this again. It takes a year to train a train driver, guys. 1 year, right? On average, right? So why don't we have a new batch of train drivers coming out April 1st, 2023? Because the first thing I'm examining here, if I've taken over Scotrail, is how many staff have we got? What capacity we are running it, David? How many services can we provide on top of this? How many extra drivers do we require to provide almost like a 24-hour service? Like if you turn up at the train station, there's always a train there. This is what you would want to do if you were nationalising the rail. If you were actually doing it right, you would examine. Look, this is my capacity. We need X amount of drivers. We need the training done now. We need the hiring done now in order to lessen the burden down the line. And to a better extent, we need to take care of the actual drivers we've got. Right, David? We need to take care of our existing stock of train drivers who are worked to the bone, it seems. And then, like you mentioned, emotionally blackmailed into thinking, well, I have to work extra shifts or I'm going to ruin X amount of people's journeys. I don't think it's fair to put the train drivers in that position. I really don't.
Certainly not. And you get a lot of very positive feedback and discussion about, for example, health service workers. We're always told what heroes they are, and I'm sure they are. I think they have a very, very difficult job, but you never hear that stuff about, for example, transport workers. It just doesn't really happen. You don't get that kind of praise. And so
they certainly do deserve it, though, David, right?
Exactly. I mean, they're doing a job like anybody else. And, if they are being told, I remember what it was like working in London in the 80s, and people would say, are you going to come in this Saturday? Well, no, I'm not actually. Why would I? And I was just doing a job in an IT business, and it's just like, it's this very different when you've got the stress of having to have people delivered from point A to point B for what might be very good reasons or very, emergency reasons, if you like, getting back to children and stuff. And if you're saying that I'm not going to do it, that's going to put an awful lot of stress on you. So, you're right. It's yet another example of poor planning. It doesn't really take that much sophistication to work out a rota for drivers of certain vehicles. It really doesn't. You just have to work out how many you need for a shift and staff up accordingly. If you can't staff up, well, really, what are you doing nationalising the business? Because surely somebody can find the resources to run a railway network where you have enough drivers to get trains from here to there to meet a timetable. The idea that in the middle of July, just a week before Glasgow Fair, they're imposing an emergency timetable because they can't cover services beyond about 4 o'clock in the afternoon between Glasgow and Edinburgh. Well, I mean, frankly, that's not even close to being good enough. That's just laughably bad, pitifully bad, in fact. So it's yet another failure of these increasingly wayward people who clearly couldn't run a bath, frankly. So, I mean, it's hard to see how much lower they can go and how much worse things can get here. But, you get the feeling that it's as if they've almost given up, because we saw what happened last week. Finally, the Scottish electorate got wise to them and said, no, we're not listening to this crap any longer. We don't accept the fact that everything in the world is Westminster's fault. We can't really have that. So you're going to actually have to do a lot better than this. So they've turfed them out. They're on track to get turfed out again next year, 2 years' time rather. And I just think that they realise they've got no way of stopping this, and they're on an inexorable slide to oblivion, because I just don't see what could stop it. The only thing that made the Labour voters go across to the SNP in the first place was, firstly, the second Iraq War, and secondly, the Better Together campaign, where they were seen sharing platforms with the hated Tories, and they used all that and whipped them up into a frenzy and got them to vote for another party. And that was what, from 14 years ago. So 9 years ago was the first time they really did it in the general election. And in the 3 elections since, it's gradually come down to where we are now, which is they've been very firmly rejected. And thank God they have. So let's hope that carries on to next year. And at the moment, I can't see anything that's going to change that, the current trend, because it's not like there's going to be another war. It's not like Britain's going to get involved in invading Gaza or anything. I can't see them getting involved in a war with Russia either. So it's either that or something else that happens, like a joint Conservative Labour initiative, and I can't see that happening either. So I really don't think that the SNP is going to have anything to bail them out this time, and I think they're going to continue to suffer and continue to go backwards, and thank the Lord for that as well. That's all I can say.
Amen, David. Well, I think thanks for coming on. You've been a spirited half an hour. Again, I did want to give you a night off with politics. You did stray into it at the end there, David. You couldn't help yourself. But I mean, the thing I really did want to talk to you about, it was simply about the golf, and,
exactly.
and I think that's the story of the weekend, right?
Yes.
It feels like a betrayal to Scottish golf.
Yeah.
The Scotrail axing services on the biggest 2 weeks in the Scottish golfing calendar. That's the story of the week, David, and that's why I brought you on, because we're keen golfers, and you know, Scotland's got such a deep-rooted history with golf. I mean, there's courses that have got over 400 years of recorded golf.
Yes,
you know, it's simply incredible, just how long and how storied Scotland's history is with golf.
Absolutely,
but again, David, I can't thank you again for coming on. If you don't already follow him, you've got his socials up on the screen, and you've done so. You've done me a massive turn in coming on, and you've managed to crank my viewers up to 950 just before the extra half an hour. You're an absolute star, David.
Anytime, anytime.
Right, so that was David Griffiths, ladies and gentlemen. Follow him at David Griffiths, or I just search for David Griffiths, or x.com, erudite for unity. Always a keen political mind, always putting out great tweets, always putting out great information, and it's unfiltered information David puts out. He's not got a slant, he's not got an angle, he just tells it like it is, and that's why I value him as a voice here in Scotland. So we're almost approaching 1,000 viewers, ladies and gentlemen. You are honouring me with how many people are on. Force for good. Great to see you doing the show now. Thanks. Good work. Nice work. We'll continue this. We'll keep the momentum going into the next few weeks, and we'll just continue the Niall Fraser show and run it all the way to 2026 and see what will happen. Get your comments in. We've only got another half an hour, so I want as many comments in as possible. Are the SNP going to keep John Swinney, or are they going to replace John Swinney? That's the question of the night. So, again, just to recap the show, we've had the election aftermath, the sort of bitterness, the betrayal, the SNP politicians coming to terms with the fact that they're not going to be working in Holyrood anymore. They're coming to terms with the fact that their gravy train ticket has expired. It's turned to ash in their mouth, and they don't like it very much at all. We've had a couple of the memes shown. We might show Churchill cigar one again, just for the pure bants. Future, the story of the night, literally going to be John Swinney. His future is in the balance, ladies and gentlemen. And that perhaps is the story. His future is in the balance. Do the SNP have the cojones? Do they have the wherewithal to replace John Swinney, or will they allow him to sink with the ship? Is John Swinney going to go down with the Titanic? Are all the other SNP members going to be claimed to be women and children to get on the lifeboats first and escape? Likely. So we've got, just to recap again, Jim Sillars calling Nicola Sturgeon Stalin's wee sister. What a great quote that is. And again, we've got Joanna Cherry probably being the most bitter of them all, coming out and attacking Sturgeon minutes after her election defeat. Minutes, mere minutes. But I really, let's go back to the golf, ladies and gentlemen. The betrayal of the Scottish government, betraying Scottish golf, the two biggest events on Scottish golfing calendar, and they're axing almost 600 services, 590 Scotrail services, over 26% of their services go down an emergency timetable because they've been overstretching their train drivers. It's unacceptable. It really is. And for it to get to this point where they're relying on people, wholly relying on people doing overtime, it's just such a condemnation of the way they run a business. It's a joke. Kate's saying, evening, Niall, good to see you live. Thank you, Kate. It's good to be live. We're approaching 1,000 viewers, guys. Again, you're honouring me with your viewership here. It's better to give the viewers to me than it is to give them to ITV or STV or whatever. It's so boring, their shows. You're not going to learn anything for there. But you'll get something different for me every single week. So just to recap again, it's the golfing for me. It's the betrayal of not only the golf, but the communities surrounding these golf tournaments. The East Coast, let's have a look at the pictures. North Berwick, Gullane, East Linton. This area is going to be flooded with golfing tourists over the next week. It starts tomorrow, ladies and gentlemen. The last Scottish Open got 72,500 record attendance. Record attendance here in Scotland. We need to be promoting it. We need to get the record. We need to smash the record and get the transport links increased, bolstered, so we can get more people to North Berwick to witness this fantastic and historic tournament. And yet, we're axing services. It feels like we're going backwards here. It's a war on the tourist. It's a war on the motorist. It's a war on transport itself, the SNP. And again, a week after it, we're over in Troon for the British Open. And again, what a betrayal of Scottish golf. What a betrayal of all the people in Ayrshire. It's astounding. All the businesses that are going to be, they're going to have 26% less passengers now on Scotrail because the services are axed. And then right in amongst, and in between this all, in between North Berwick and Troon, or East Coast to West Coast, right bang in the middle, Glasgow, we've got Transmit. How's the music festival going to be affected by the Scotrail? A lot of people rely on the last train home. You know what I mean? Especially if they're having a few drinks. These trains are pivotal to our economy here. And just how bad, how they're taking an axe to the local economies in doing this. This, make no bones about it, ladies and gentlemen. This will be seen across the communities in the East Coast this week coming and the West Coast next week because of the action of these Scotrail services. It's really, for me, it sticks in the craw. Really quite annoying. So we're over 1,000 viewers, ladies and gentlemen. Incredible scenes. You can follow us on, you can actually go, we're building the website, the niallfrasershow.com, where I'll be depositing all my videos on that. You can follow us on Twitter, of course. You'll likely, most of you are watching it, 1,000 people watching on X already. You'll likely follow that. If you don't already, click the follow button. We're trying to transport people to YouTube as well, but if you don't like YouTube, don't go there. I'm not going to make anyone go there, really. And if you didn't already, follow David Griffiths, who has just departed us there. We brought him on to talk golf, but I couldn't help himself talking politics, so he couldn't. Right, so we've got about 15 minutes left, and we'll go back to what I wanted to close the show out with, because I think it's worth stating, and it's worth putting it on again, is Keir Starmer's first speech in Westminster. And bear in mind, if you've just won an election by such a mammoth margin, you want to just go in there and lay the law down and say, this is what we're going to do. And you want to start as you mean to continue. Now, you tell me. The Prime Minister. You tell me what you think Keir Starmer's going to start and then mean to continue.
The Prime Minister
Sir Keir Starmer.
Mr. Speaker-elect, on behalf of the whole House, may I be the first to congratulate you on your re-election. And I'm grateful that new members will be able to look to you as they begin the great privilege of serving their constituents in this House. Mr. Speaker-elect, you preside over a new Parliament, the most diverse Parliament by race and gender this country has ever seen. And I'm proud of the part that my party has played in that, proud of the part that every party has played in that, including in this intake, the largest cohort of LGBT plus MPs of any parliament in the world.
Hey, big cheer, guys, big cheer. The most LGBTQ plus members of parliament of any parliament in the world. Yay! Yes, let's get universal clapping. Applause, please. I feel like there should be a button, a huge light in the House of Commons that says applaud now. That's what it feels. It's so ridiculous. Glenn Jackson pointing to 1,000 comment to feed the algorithm. So I'm not going to play the YouTube game. I don't want to play the YouTube game. If you want to subscribe to the YouTube, you go ahead and do that. But I think X is going to be the platform for me. I'm not going to put my eggs in a basket where YouTube can just just take your content down for no reason. If you want to follow the show, it might be easier to watch on YouTube if you want to cast it to your telly or whatnot. But if you're on your phone, if you're out and about, just use X. And that's where I'm putting out my content, because I feel that it's actually going to show it. And then, again, what's very interesting, we're seeing the rise of reform. The story of this election was, the story of the election was really the desolation of the SNP, the chink in the armour being exploited to its maximum, and the 48 MPs becoming 9, just getting absolutely decimated, and they're getting crushed. And on the flip side, we've got Reform, a brand new party, first election that ever fielded, and yet they're getting basically 7% average across Scotland, and they got 5 MPs in first go. That's the story, especially when it's the first past the post system. Anyone that knows politics will tell you first past the post is the most brutal electing method there is. And of course, the first day that Farage is in, he's pointing out the fact, hold on a minute, we got 4 million votes. We got almost the same amount of votes as the Lib Dems did. They've got 70 members of parliament. We've got 5. What's going on? He's saying, let's get proportional representation in there. Something that the left has been calling on for the longest time. I still don't agree. I'm not entirely sold on it, if I'm honest. I think we should stick to our historic roots with first past the post. But does the first past the post system, that's maybe a comment. If you know the answer to that, or you've got an opinion on that, what does the first past the post system, does that suit the two-party duopoly we've got? Does that suit the Labour and the Tories, the red and blue paradigm? Does that suit, does first past the post suit them and suit them alone? That's the question. Or do we just need to continue with the first past the post system until we see, I was watching a pretty interesting show the other day, and it was a clip of Peter Hitchens, and he's saying, if the Labour Party and the Tory Party are like two corpses leaning on each other, if you take one away, the other one falls. So it looks like if we continue in the way we're going, the Tories are looked to be dead. If we strip away the Tories, Labour will fall as well, because they've nobody up against. It's we're no the Tories, we're no Labour, back and forth, and we never actually go anywhere. But another story would be, where does this leave the Tories? And where does it leave, more to the point, individual MPs and individual Tories? What are they thinking? Are they thinking, are they seeing the writing on the wall? Are they thinking, I better join Reform quickly, or else I'm going to lose my job as well? So here we are, Suella Braverman of all people. And I'll play this, and this is just the other day, ladies and gentlemen.
Far, far too many Tory politicians agreed and still agree that the progress flag must be flown. To be kind, to be inclusive. It shows how liberal and progressive we are. And that's what many Conservatives want us to be. Well, the progress flag says to me, it says to me one monstrous thing, that I was a member of a government that presided over the mutilation of our children in our hospitals and from our schools.
Interesting that, isn't it? So just after the Tories' miserable election showing, Suella Braverman comes out, she's now ashamed of being part of that government and being a part of this rainbow cloud that brought in all these actions that resulted in the mutilation of children on a mass scale. On a mass scale, ladies and gentlemen. 2 years ago, I put a video, and it looks to me like every other politician of any value, that is turning to the Niall Fraser position, which is gender ideology is the number one threat. And in order to sort of philosophically detach and start solving problems, this is the thing. We need to destroy the gender ideology. It's the simplest of lies, ladies and gentlemen. A man can't become a woman. Simple. It's the simplest of lies. And in order to fix any other problem, we need to defeat the simplest lie first, ladies and gentlemen. That's the political philosophy that I've been pushing. But everyone seems to be coming to the Niall Fraser position of, it's horrendous.
I'm here at the Wallace Monument, a symbol of freedom, using what's...
2 years ago I made this, by the way, 2 years ago.
I'm here at the Wallace Monument, a symbol of freedom, using what's left of my free speech to draw a line under the gender-bending, anti-science, pro-fantasy society the SNP have adopted for Scotland and its citizenship, like many other countries around the globe. You might not like what I've got to say here, but it's the truth. Sometimes it hurts, but the truth ultimately sets you free. There are only two sexes. There are only two genders. Any deviation from this fact is an attempt to deceive, an attempt to make you believe the unbelievable, an attempt to make you disregard the fundamental laws of nature. Scotland isn't the only place in the world facing this psychological assault. But we can be the first to defeat the wicked practice of confusing innocent children, the wicked practice of taking advantage of young, impressionable minds. Convincing innocent children that they're born in the wrong body is diabolical. Anyone watching this that's considering transitioning, which means mutilating yourself physically or chemically in order to appear more like the other sex, needs urgent help. If you're in this situation, do not transition. Don't do it because you can't go back if you regret the decision. It's utterly despicable that we've got politicians in this country, in the ancient country of ours, openly promoting dangerous unreality. It goes to show just how far we've plunged as a society. Nobody seems to have grasped just how serious, how grave this situation actually is. So to visualise what the SNP and the Greens are doing to us, I've brought along my old biology textbook. This is what the fascist SNP are doing. This is what the pushers of gender theory are doing. They're setting fire to a millennia of knowledge and replacing it with delusion. It's time for Scots to wake up, otherwise the children of Scotland will have no future.
There you go, ladies and gentlemen. That's the Niall Fraser position on gender ideology. It's so clear cut, and you know, if you watch that again, you'll see me sort of look about in that video because I'm trying not to set myself on fire. I've got a big flaming torch by the way. My Jacob was about to go up in flame. I could have been self-immolated up there at the Wallace Monument. Maybe that would have made the news. But we've got over 1,100 people watching us. We've only got 10 minutes left, ladies and gentlemen. What are you doing? You've come in too late. Maybe you're watching the England after show. But congratulations to England on reaching the Euro finals. who they'll be up against Spain. That'll be a good match. Right, so this is the thing, right? All of these politicians, and any politician that's got worth anything, will reach the Niall Fraser position eventually. Suella Braverman just done it the other day, ladies and gentlemen. Where's this come from? Where's this come from? In the election campaign, what's Nigel Farage saying on Twitter? Reform will seek to remove gender ideology from schools. That's the Niall Fraser position. I'm called extreme in the by-election in Rutherglen, but for saying I want to go into all the schools, day one, I'll go into every single school in Rutherglen and Hamilton West and remove every single rainbow from every single wall on day one. We're going to tear the rainbows off the wall. And I'm called extreme by the Tory member there. I can't even remember. Thomas Kerr. He's a good guy. I'm sure he means well, but I don't think he understands the urgency in removing this toxic ideology from our schools. Every minute it's there, it's a children's mind is being warped. Every minute it's there, somebody is being lied to in this gender ideology. And you're just saying, you know, all these fantastical genders coming out. You're seeing people across an island saying there's 9 genders with absolute certainty. They're on camera as I'm with you right now and they're saying there are 9 genders. They're lying to you, ladies and gentlemen. It's obvious. There's 2. This, over time, what they've done is they've put a big wedge in between this word sex and this word gender. And they've stretched it apart and they've said they're 2 separate things. And actually, gender is a social construct. What a load of shite, ladies and gentlemen. What a load of shite. And everyone will arrive at the Suella Braverman position. And let's just play it again for clarity.
Far, far too many Tory politicians agreed and still agree that the progress flag must be flown. To be kind, to be inclusive. It shows how liberal and progressive we are. And that's what many Conservatives want us to be. Well, the progress flag says to me, it says to me one monstrous thing, that I was a member of a government that presided over the mutilation of our children in our hospitals and from our schools.
There you go, ladies and gentlemen. Not only is she talking about the child mutilation, she's linking the child mutilation to the progress flag. Well done, Suella Braverman. Well done. Again, could have happened a bit earlier. Could have happened while you're actually in government and you were doing well. You know what I mean? It could have happened when you were at the height of your power. But no. It's come on the low ebb. What use is that? What use is that? Tell me in the comments. Is that... I mean, what's with the timing on that? Like, seriously, why now? Why now? I suspect it's because she's angling for a position in reform. But that's just me and my suspicions. But once again, guys, we've got the closing 5 minutes. We want to go through sort of a recap of the show. So we've been on live for 2 hours. We're going to make this maybe a regular show. I might do them sporadically. I don't think I'm going to have a set day for the shows. I reckon we'll do maybe 2 shows a week for 2 hours, and we'll go through the sort of the news of the day. I'll sort of cherry pick what news I want to talk about, and we'll just go live because, well, a wee bit of personal news for me. We were sadly at a funeral the other day, and it just it sort of reaffirmed that, you know, we need to make use of every day, ladies and gentlemen. The guy that was at the funeral the other day was only 32. And, you know, I from that, I want to sort of relish every moment and make it count. So with that in mind, we're going to go live way more often than we are just now, because we had such a drought of content, so to say. But now we're all guns blazing, ladies and gentlemen. And again, we've got over 1,100 people watching, all approaching 1,200 people. I can't thank you enough. I really can't. And if you could see yourself to subscribe on YouTube, if you like that, go for it. If you don't, don't, of course. Right, so again, the stories of the day, and most of the papers are going with it. SNP Stalinist leadership must go, says Jim Sellers. Scottish Daily Mail leading with that. You've got the Scottish Daily Express. Scotrail pay route risks a summer of travel chaos. It sounds like a normal day in Scotland travel chaos. I mean, let's talk about the roads. We can talk about the roads for the last 5 minutes. It's insane. What else? The Scotsman. What are they leading with? Scotrail cuts 600 services as driver pay dispute escalates. Although this is sort of, again, it's got nothing to do with the driver dispute now. It's the fact that they're overstretched. The train drivers are getting burnt out. We don't have enough train drivers. It takes a year to train train drivers. When was it taken over? It was taken over in 2022. Why don't we have more trained train drivers? It makes no sense. Why? What are they doing over there at Holyrood? Are they just eating shortbread all day? What is happening? We need some ownership here. What are they? They're just so irresponsible, so incompetent. Again, the story of the weekend. It's got to be Scotrail cutting services, slashing services by 26%, almost 600 journeys a day. It's insane. And again, just to reaffirm all this, this is on the eve of the two biggest golfing tournaments in the Scottish golf calendar. The Scottish Open that starts tomorrow at the Renaissance Club over in Gullane or Gullane, whatever you want to pronounce it, right next door in North Berwick. And then a week tomorrow, we're starting the British Open in Troon, Royal Troon, which is we'll likely see well over 200,000 attendance. The Scottish Open in Berwick will likely see well over 70,000 attendance. And yet, we're slashing services. What is going on at SNP HQ? What is going on in Holyrood? Nothing great. And for the last 3 minutes, again, we're cutting all these services, right? You know already, if you drive on the Edinburgh bypass, that it's going to be absolutely murder trying to get to North Berwick over the next weekend. It's going to be absolutely pandemonium at the Sheriff Hall Junction. The Edinburgh bypass is going to be absolutely chock-a-block for the next 4 days. Chock-a-block, ladies and gentlemen. So I would avoid as much as possible. And then likely, all the motorways from Glasgow, all the way through East Kilbride, all the way through Kilmarnock to Troon are going to be stowed. We need the trains up. We need more trains on. We don't need less trains on. So as we're approaching 12 for our viewers, guys, we're going to have to bid farewell. It's approaching midnight. I thank you all for coming to number 2, the Niall Fraser Show, episode 2. Planes, trains, and golf buggies. Special thanks to David Griffiths coming on. We gave him a day off. It wasn't all politics. We talked about golf, what golf meant for him as a wee lad growing up, and what it means for him still, and what golf means for Scotland in general. It's such a great sport, guys. I can't encourage people enough to go and try it. All genders, guys, all 2 of them. Go and try golf. And if you're, and I would encourage your children to go and play golf as well, especially if you find them on the phone a lot. Because if they're on the phone a lot, tell them golf. Just leave the phone in the car. Golf's a game where you're sort of in tune with nature, and you get a break for the phone, guys. It's great for your mental health. Golf, right? So with that, guys, it's been a great show. That's us run over 2 hours. Well done to England on making the final of the Euros. Special thanks to David Griffiths again. And thank you all, almost all 1,200 of you, for tuning in for episode 2. So with that, we're going to play our outro. And I thank you all again. And please do keep updated for future shows. You can jump on YouTube and you'll be alerted to when my next broadcast will be. And of course, if you already follow me on X, I'll just tweet it when I'm going to go live again. But other than that, guys, it's a fond farewell from me, and have yourself a great evening.